Yeah.
Let's roll. Are we ready, fellas? All right. Good evening.
Yep.
Welcome to City Council. We're going to have an emergency session to discuss matters pertinent to the COVID-19 virus. We'll dispense for the time being with both the pledge of the flag and our moment of silence. We'll get into that with our regular session. Those of you who are uncertain about how to address questions to the city, Callie Cronin-Sams is here in the building, and she is accepting messages that can be sent to Buckhannon at buckhanonwv.org. Again, that's Buckhannon at buckhanonwv.org. So if you have any questions during the course of this live streaming, send your messages to Callie at, again, Buckhannon at buckhanonwv.org. Pursuant to West Virginia Code, Chapter 6, Article 9A, Section 3H2, the facts and circumstances of the existing emergency give rise to the call for this emergency meeting are, first, the proclamation declaring a national emergency concerning the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19, outbreak issued on March 13, 2020 by the President of the United States. Two, guidance on social distancing published by the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, applicable to the entirety of the United States of America, including the city of Buckhannon. And third, the state of emergency declaration to prepare for and respond to the outbreak of respiratory disease caused by a novel coronavirus now known as COVID-19, issued on March 16, 2020 by the governor of the state of West Virginia. So let's get into it. The sooner we get started, the sooner we can get into our regular session. Again, good evening. Once again, our city officials want to reassure the citizens of our BU community that our city continues to work closely with county and state health department officials and our primary health care providers regarding the threat posed by the coronavirus. Testing for the virus is available at 3 locations in Buckhannon: St. Joseph's Hospital, Community Care, and Dr. Kahn's office. We continue to have regular conversations with all of our primary partners. Everyone in our city organization is committed to minimizing, as much as possible, the threat posed to our citizenry and our staff by COVID-19. The twice-per-week teleconferences with health department, healthcare providers, and county representatives continue, and city officials participate in those discussions. We continue to collaborate and interact as public officials as we collectively address this global health crisis. I remind our residents that we are all working under declared state and federal emergencies. Our global, regional, and local situation with this virus is very fluid, and issues with the pandemic change daily. We remain alert and responsive to federal and state directives and recommendations, processing and acting upon new information daily. One of the new measures our city is about to implement was just handed down today from the state of West Virginia. We have had 3 positive tests confirmed here in Upshur County. 13 of our fellow mountaineers have now succumbed to the virus, and more than 700 have tested positively here. More than 32,000 Americans have now died from COVID-19, and the total number of Americans who've contracted the disease has eclipsed 650,000, with more than 2 million cases worldwide. I am recommending the Council's adoption of additional measures this evening that are intended to flatten the curve and which will be implemented immediately upon Council's approval. These measures are intended to further minimize the spread of the COVID-19 virus. If followed, these measures will help prevent contraction and spread of this virus. It pains me to recommend our Council's adoption of additional measures necessitated by this plague. It is imperative that as an organization that our city continue to offer our most essential services, delivery of utilities, that's water, sewage, and waste collection, and first response from our police and fire departments. In order to assure continuity of all of these services, we need to protect the health of our employees first and foremost while they discharge their important tasks. Also, our citizenry will be better protected from this health threat if they're not out and about tending to non-essential chores. To that end, I am proposing our council approve the following additional emergency measures until our state and federal authorities have determined that this threat has passed. These measures are in addition to those approved by City Council on March 13, 19, 24, and April 2, and are intended to be consistent with our federal and state mandates and guidelines. First, we have received a letter dated April 9, 2020, executed by all of the members of our police and fire departments. Our first responders are specifically requesting that our City Council presumptively find that if any member of our full-time police or fire departments would contract the COVID-19 virus and die as a consequence of the virus, that such death would be considered by our organization as a line of duty death, thus entitling any fallen member's family to receive benefits coming from the line of duty death designation. There is attached in your council packets this evening the April 2020 flyer from the Public Safety Officers Benefits Program regarding the coronavirus COVID-19 update explaining the particulars. We need to approve this presumption this evening for the benefit of all of our full-time first responders and their families. To avoid any possible misunderstanding, our council now finds that any full-time member of our Buckhannon Police or Fire Department who contracts the COVID-19 virus and succumbs to the virus shall be deemed for all purposes as having contracted the virus while in the line of duty. 2. While we accepted Jawbone Park and our River Walk Trail from park closures during our April 2 meeting, there have been suggestions that commercial activities could ensue or may resume at these locations. In the spirit of maintaining social distancing and deterring our residents from coming together in groups, we need to prohibit all commercial activities within Jawbone Park and our river trail until the states of emergency have been lifted. This would include, but is not limited to, the farmers market activities normally conducted in Jawbone Park. To that end, all commercial activities are prohibited for the duration of the state of emergency in Jawbone Park and at our Riverwalk Trail. 3. With so many of our residents sheltering in place, and we thank those of you who are staying at home to the maximum extent possible, many have engaged in cleaning and decluttering of their homes. Some have planned yard sales and garage sales. We need to restrict such sales for the immediate future for several reasons. First, we should not send the message that congregating people at sales sites is anything but a bad idea right now. It would defy the social distancing mandates. Second, the Parish House, Goodwill, and Salvation Army operations are not accepting most non-foodstuff contributions at this time. The Parish House and Salvation Army pantries continue to operate, but the opportunity to leave things for those in need, aside from food, has been suspended indefinitely. Third, our city waste collection crews are not currently engaged in either curbside recycling or bulky good pickups. Residents need to warehouse their things they seek to discard for future yard and garage sales after the state of emergency has been lifted. To that end, all yard, garage, patio, attic, and similar sales or giveaways of domestic property items are prohibited for the duration of the state of emergency within Buckhannon's corporate limits. 4. Pursuant to Emergency Legislative Rule 64-114-1 et sec, entered just today, that is April 16, 2020, by the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources, essential businesses shall permit no more than 2 individual members per 1,000 square feet of customer floor space at any given time. For essential businesses consisting of less than 1,000 square feet, no more than 5 persons, including employees, shall be permitted at any given time. The City of Buckhannon hereby adopts and incorporates this state legislative rule as part of our municipal state of emergency. 5. Governor Justice, by executive order, has reduced the number that is deemed to constitute a group of people from 10 to 5 in a number of West Virginia counties. However, Upshur County has not yet been identified as one of those reduced group counties. Our city will automatically adopt the state criteria. That is, upon the governor's declaration in Upshur County that any assemblage of people exceeding 5 in number is mandated for social distancing. To be clear, assemblage of groups of 10 right now continues to be strictly prohibited in all public places. This directive will be closely monitored by our police department, and first steps will be to order dispersal of any group exceeding 10, for now, in number. Refusal to comply with this directive may result in citation issuance. 6. Travel by residents of our community to places outside of our community continues to be strongly discouraged. Similarly, visitors are strongly discouraged from coming to Buckhannon at this time. Simply stated, strong measures need to be taken by all of us to avoid transporting the virus to our community. We need to consider this as a lockdown moment to minimize the spread of the virus. Simply stated, now is not the time to socialize in person. Please, phone and FaceTime your friends and family. Check in on your neighbors, especially the elderly or ill, but do that while socially distancing. 7. Our city strongly recommends continued self-quarantine, shelter-in-place measures by all of our citizens to the maximum extent possible until this health threat has passed and the state of emergency has been lifted. The more we isolate ourselves from others, the less likely we are to contract and spread the virus. Please try to limit trips to the grocery store to once per week. Consider the wearing of masks when in public. We all continue to appreciate our excellent city staff, the hospital and healthcare employees who are on the front line of battling this threat, the staffs at our grocery stores who are working overtime to stock shelves so that we may all continue to be fed, the restaurants that continue to offer delivery or pick-up food services, and the food delivery efforts of our school system. We continue to be all in this together. And I know as we get through the coming weeks that we'll remain strong as a community with minimal impact upon the health of our residents. Anyone having an emergency should contact 911 as you normally would. The best source of information about COVID-19 remains the Centers for Disease Control website. Council, I would entertain a motion that we approve these additional measures this evening.
So
moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Albaugh, and I think I heard Mr. Sanders second the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is anyone opposed? The minutes will reflect that the additional measures carry unanimously. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn from our emergency meeting and begin our regular session.
So moved.
I have a motion by Rylands. Can I have a second to his motion?
Second.
I have a second by Sanders. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, I will call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Now, welcome to our regular session of City Council. The first order of business, and we'll do the public hearings on a couple of ordinances before we do our moment of silence and the pledge of the flag. This is two public hearings. The first one, public hearing of the Council of the City of Buckhannon regarding proposed enactment of ordinance number 444 of the City of Buckhannon, and ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 244 and ordinance number 384 of the City of Buckhannon by rezoning that property with a commonly known address of 937 Brushy Fork Road, identified as Corporation District, map 33, parcel 1.1, and currently titled in the name of A&T Enterprises, LLC, from Military District to C2 Highway Commercial District. Is there anyone present in council chambers or out there virtually in Cyberland that would like to be heard relative to ordinance 444? Hearing of none, we'll move into the next public hearing relative to ordinance 445. Public hearing of the Council of the City of Buckhannon regarding proposed enactment of ordinance number 445 of the City of Buckhannon, and ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 244 and ordinance number 384 of the City of Buckhannon by rezoning that property, identified as Corporation District, map 33, parcel 1, and titled in the name of Upshur County Development Authority, from M, Military District, to I, Industrial District. Is there anyone either in council chambers or who are following us streamingly out there in virtual reality land that would like to be heard relative to ordinance 445? Hearing that no one desires to be heard relative to ordinance 445, we will close our public hearing. And now we will convene the regular session of council. We've lost 13 West Virginians. Hundreds have been impacted, and that means hundreds of families, by those who have tested positively. More than 32,000 Americans have now died as a result of this god-awful plague. I would ask that we keep all of the people of our state, of our region, of our nation, and our entire world in our best thoughts, wishes, and prayers as we engage in our moment of silent reflection. Thank you very much. Mrs. Albaugh, would you be so kind as to lead us in the pledge to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, folks. We only have one guest, and when we have one of our own, we shouldn't really regard them as a guest. You might recall that last October 1st, Dixie Green started with us as our new horticulturist, and she's been very busy in her planning for the upcoming growing, blooming season. And one of the things that we spoke to Dixie a month or so about was coming up with some plans. We have all kinds of new bays that have been created by Brad Hawkins and Jerry Arnold's Streets and Parks crews that are just shouting out for landscaping and flowers and all of those kinds of things. So if you don't know Dixie Green, Dixie, the floor is yours. And we're seeing over here on this slideshow some terrific looking things. I was almost going to run down to some of these sites and check them out, and then I was told that no, that's just what it's going to be.
I know, it's very realistic.
Yeah, it's very realistic. Yes, it is.
It's actually a very fancy $5 app on
There you
on
go,
my phone.
$5.
I wanted to rough it in, give you guys an idea. Sometimes it's difficult to read from a aerial view, a design of a bunch of circles on a piece of paper. So
So yes, we do have 6 new beds that are going in this spring and summer. 3 of which are in Trader's Alley, 1 on Madison Street, 1 across from Sheets on Route 20, and 1 in front of the City Seal mural. So 4 of them are designed and done, and I have the budget for those. You can see pictures of those up there on that fancy slide that Andy was so nice to set up for me. As you can see, there's a pretty good mixture of evergreen, summer color, spring color. I kind of just wanted to give that area a nice pop of color, as well as having some winter foliage in there, because it is pretty bare. And then Jerry Arnold, he mentioned a seating opportunity there in that picture right there with Trader's Alley, and I think that's a wonderful idea.
Couple
That's
of cool benches, huh?
Yep. Yeah, if not 1, then 2. I think it'd be a great place for people, a little more private off the main street. I think it'd be a great place for people to sit and have a cup of coffee or wait on somebody. So
Ice cream cone.
ice cream cone.
There you go.
There you go. So the budget for those 4 beds comes to just a little over $700 for those 4, and that's including mulch. It's not including the fill dirt, but most of that's going to be pretty easy to come by. We have quite a bit of it up by the cemetery there. So those are those beds. As you can see, pretty standard burning bushes, forsythia, some rhododendron, arborvitae, just a little color there.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Great.
So tell us about some of your other ideas for introduction of the more exotic plants that I guess we'd have to put those back in the greenhouse about the end of September, 1st of October every year. Is that
Yes.
a fair statement?
So I've got a couple that are going to be going into the displays around town. The main spot that I really am focusing on as far as exotic and tropical is going to be the wall past McDonald's up on that hill there. That's going to be almost all tropical, unusual, exotic plants, which obviously is just going to last for this season, but it's going to be pretty showy display there. And then I'll incorporate a few things in some of the other earth boxes and planters around town.
Do you want to give us any update on the new greenhouse operation?
That has been postponed
Okay.
for right now. The owner, since the greenhouse actually sits on a residential area and he doesn't want it ripped up with the muddy spring, and I completely understand that. So we were talking May to begin with as far as going and getting it. But with this pandemic that's been going on, I told him just to sit tight, and I'll be in touch with them as soon as, we're able to have a crew out there. So that's been postponed for the time being, but hopefully we'll still be able to do that this year.
Excellent.
Right now, we are just getting the beds ready. You can see that we go around usually in the mornings on nice days, and we're just cleaning up the beds and tending to our bulbs. People seem to enjoy the color that's out right now. As those die off, we will be putting out annuals, and those are scheduled to be out towards the end of May. I'm thinking 3rd or 4th week, 1st week of June at the latest for getting the last of those out.
Fantastic.
Hmm?
Last summer, might have been May, might have been June, might have been July, I can't remember exactly when, there were a couple of trees that were transplanted from Jawbone to the bank area below Fox's Pizza. I'm pretty sure as you're facing that building, the tree to the right has bitten the dust.
Yes, Jerry said that he's going to have that taken out. The tree in the circle at Jawbone is also going to be taken out. We'll replace both of those with something a little more sturdy.
Super.
And those are definitely on the list. The other thing with trees is that I'll be working with Buck Edwards with Great Buckhannon here very soon to plant some dogwoods and hopefully some redbuds if they leaf out over by the Dollar Tree.
Oh, that's excellent.
Mhm.
Super.
I think that's where they're going, I believe so. Yeah.
Council, anybody have any questions or comments for Dixie? I think she's hitting the ground running for us.
Yeah. Some time ago, I mentioned that area
The
beside the
flocks.
dentist's office and the Development Authority building. And I know, coordinating all that, designing and getting approval. So is we just going to go with what's there kind of this year? And
I think so. putting a whole new, I don't know if you just wanted to go with phlox, which I really think is a really great idea. I think that's a really showy thing to put in there, especially early spring. But we might want to put some other things in there, and that might take some more coordinating and more funding, but that would definitely be a great project first thing in the spring.
Yeah. Okay, well, as long as we're just doing something about it and we get there.
Oh, I agree.
You know.
I agree.
Because that'd be one more little invitation to spend time in the public space. And right now, it's just a kind of a catch-all behind that fence, you know. Great, thank you.
Anybody else have a question or comment for Dixie?
I just want to follow up on what CJ and you were talking about, Dixie. What's the timeline on that area up next to the dentist's office?
Probably next spring.
Next spring, okay, that's what I thought I heard.
Yeah, sorry, I should have clarified.
But we're
Okay,
hopeful
thanks.
these other bays will come to fruition this spring and summer, right?
Yes, this spring and summer.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Mary, anything?
No, I love it. It's beautiful.
Pam, Robbie, Dave?
Well,
Beautiful.
I would like to see if we could put a few evergreens around town.
Evergreens.
Any particular spot?
Well, like the boxes at the Dairy Queen and the other boxes throughout, that we could have evergreens, and that way in the Christmas season we can also decorate those, and they could be part of the foliage the rest of the time.
Yeah, we're probably going to look at replacing some of those displays, maybe with a more permanent structure. We're going to do some repairs on them this spring because they're starting to fall apart a little bit. So hopefully we'll get a permanent structure in there, but I think that's a wonderful idea to put some dwarf spruces or something in there.
Yeah, I think we need some. Thank you.
Dixie, how long do they live?
The evergreens?
I know they're evergreens, but forever.
Yeah,
That's what they call
if they don't die.
I mean, how tall do they get? Some of them get really tall.
Some of them get really tall. For the main street, if that's the area you're talking about putting evergreens in there, I would probably go with some sort of dwarf Alberta spruce or something along that line that would be between 4 and 6 feet tall. And they're super slow growers, so it would take 20 years for them to get to be 6 feet tall.
Right.
It'd be great at Christmas time. Good idea, Pam.
Anyone else? Well, you're doing a great job. I know you've been out there working the beds already, so that's fantastic. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daisy. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, we have no other guests, so we'll get right into department and board reports. Callie, are you still there?
I am here, and I'm just across City Hall in my office here, and I've got the go-to meeting running for our council members and some guests that have joined us through the go-to meeting, and we also have a Facebook Live watch party running and for our council meeting tonight. And I wanted to thank Channel 3 again so much for coming in and broadcasting that so that we are able to have our meeting broadcast live and able to have public participation and continue to conduct the important city business throughout this pandemic. So big thank you to them for sure. And in addition, I've just been continuing to share information via Facebook, social media, our website as well. Again, our COVID-19 page is the buckhannon.wv.org/COVID-19. Continue to post information both from the state and our local health department, as well as the Buckhannon Upshur COVID Community Response Task Force that's meeting twice weekly. So we're getting information out on that. I also wanted to make sure people knew how to access these meetings. So in addition to the press release that we had done previously, or maybe multiple, now not only is it on the agendas, but right on the home page, it says how folks can join us here live and watch the live stream. Continuing, as I said, to participate in those twice twice weekly Buckhannon Extra COVID-19 task board meetings and the governor's press conferences. And you also have in your packet what we have up on the LED CNET sheets, which includes the information about how to get to our webpage for COVID-19, as well as reminding folks to please take part in the census. You should receive information on that in the mail, and you can do it online as well. And we also are running the new election date for our local election. So that's what I've been up to, and that's all I have unless you have questions.
Questions for Callie? Callie, thanks. We know these are unusual circumstances where we can't see everybody, but we appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks a lot.
Public Works Director Jerry Arnold. Jerry, are you out there in Cyberland?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Yes, we can.
Hear me now? Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Just so I don't forget it, an announcement that we will resume yard debris collection starting tomorrow, and that will be the first and third Friday of every month. So we'll start tomorrow. I know that there wasn't enough notice to get folks to call in, but we'll start with back on our permanent list tomorrow with yard debris collection. I emailed Brian Cooper with the West Virginia DOH about the Route 33 traffic study, and he's not received any update, but was going to check with traffic engineering in Charleston if they had talked with the consultant yet. I've also asked Matt Reese with ANO Railroad if he had a timeline for the upgrade to the Route 20 crossing, and he did not have a scheduled date, but he would get back in touch as soon as the information became available to him. Under the street department report, the crews have completed about 95% of the Madison Street project and installed the new ADA compliant ramps at South Florida and Madison Street intersections. They'll be starting the mural project probably next week, and we'll be making pothole repairs again as soon as we have hot mix available to us. The sewer department, they continue to operate at a reduced staff, and actually they're going to try to return most of their employees next week. The crew continues to work on the C.J. Martin extension, and C.J.'s building is hooked up, and they continue or completed the storm sewer repair at 178A Camden Avenue. 33 West Sewer Extension North Side, all permits are in, signs are up, the right-of-way's been cleared. Just waiting for everybody to get back and to finish up the C.J. Martin project to get on that one. And the 33 West Sewer Extension South Side, working on permits in the alternate main line agreement. I think that went out this evening. And the water department, the line crews will be returning to full staff on Monday. Waste department continue to operate at full staff, and I'd like to commend the staff out there for handling a large increase in volume due to folks staying at home and cleaning up around their properties and cleaning out buildings and such. They've been inundated with additional waste and customer loads. If you've not been by, at any given time, the vehicles are lined clear up to our gate throughout the day, especially on days like today. Also under engineering, Jay continues to work on the following projects: the community rating system, the risk assessment and emergency response, the FEMA generator grant 1 and 2, the report on the Gateway West Phase 2 project. We plan on, the street department plans on begin construction on June 1. And quarter H South Water Line, actually the update to that is we received the executed mainline extension agreement from JF Allen this evening. So that's all I have, Mayor, unless there's questions.
Questions for Jerry? Jerry,
Do we know when we're going to get the faces installed on the new street signage that's been put up?
I have them, Robbie, but there's some locations that I need to change the signage around a little bit. the guys got a couple of them in the wrong spot. So I'm going to change them around, but I have all the sign faces. The sign shop, of course, after this COVID thing outbreak, they did get them all to me. I have them in possession, and I would say that there's a lot of them will be going up next week.
Okay, sounds good.
Other questions for Jerry? Jerry, tell all the guys we appreciate them.
Yes.
We couldn't do
I
it.
will.
Couldn't do it without the guys in the trenches. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry.
Stay
Thanks.
safe.
Thank you.
Our Director of Finance and Administration, Amby Jenkins. Amby, you were here a second ago. You just popping in and out all over the place.
I'm
back
obeying
there.
all the rules. I waited for Dixie to leave and then I came inside. We're practicing the social distancing that we're preaching. So
Yes.
we're trying to do the right things.
We're trying hard.
Yeah, just to follow up to kind of what Jerry mentioned about waste collection, one of the things we got the most calls about this week was garbage. Please bag your garbage. We want to keep our guys safe as well. That was an order that came down from Public Service Commission. All garbage inside the containers have to be bagged. I don't care if it's in a Walmart bag, a garbage bag, a leaf bag. It needs to be just contained so that when they dump those containers, they don't have to pick up anything that's loose. Just a reminder. On your finances, I'm going to give you the finances for your entities for the month ending March 31st. Waste Collection Board had $681,903 in money market and checking. CDs $57,586. Sanitary Board $794,452 in checking and money market, and $250,781 in CDs in their CDs. Water Department $270,903, and in their CDs they had $960,423. Consolidated Public Works Board $121,703, and in cemetery CD $230,348. I'll report on something the next time about some J.F. Allen projects, unless you were going to mention that.
I'm good.
Okay, all right. I've been listening, along with many other people that are in essential services, many Zoom meetings, web meetings, phone meetings, trying to keep up with the CARES Act and how would we apply for funds that we're having shortcomings on. I mean, we're having some expenses, I'm sure not nearly as many as some of these other cities. I have to say we've been somewhat lucky. But so far, we have just the latest tally is $1,300 we've expensed in cleaning supplies. Our biggest expense is trying to rotate staff around. I'm not sure what type of funds we'll be eligible for, if any of those, but we're up to around $28,000 in wages. Benefits are about $5,600 from trying to keep staff apart and rotating them on and off. And do the best we can to keep people separated as we can. I am, however, I have been working on this week moving some equipment downstairs to some computers and printers so that I can bring that other half of the staff back in next week. That's a completely isolated area from upstairs. The air exchange is completely separate, so they'll be safe down there, and we'll be safe from them up here. But it'll help to get more people answering phones and back at the office. So be patient with us. We have been keeping people on hold. We've been trying to take the payments, but it's sometimes we just have to leave them ring because we can't get to all of them. And again, the reason I am separating the staff is in case one half of that staff would become exposed to COVID, then at least the other staff can keep working. I wanted to also let you know, I got a call from Michael Livesey. He was calling on behalf of the Strawberry Festival, asking if they would still be receiving their $5,000 for the festival this year. So I told him, well, since it wasn't being held, we'd have to know what the expenses were for, because he said they'd already had paid some out. So if he could send that letter to us and let us know. But in the meantime, I also, across some of these conferences, found out there's some CARES money available to different organizations that have lost funding, and some of them are actually festivals. So I passed that on to him so they could apply for some funding, and I'm waiting on that letter from them. And that's all I have right at the moment. I have some down in strategic matter I need to talk to you about.
Questions for Amy Jenkins?
Andy, if I could follow up on the, you said $28,000 in wages and $5,600 in benefits.
Yes.
Can you tell me again what that was about?
That's where we're having to rotate out staff or overtime that they're getting because of this.
Okay.
So they said kind of use a broad pencil with this, and so I'm using the broad pencil with it. We'll also have to look at, the other things we'll look at, and I can't really tell a number yet, is if we fall into any shortages from any B&O, where people have had to close down their businesses, that we won't know that yet, and what the numbers will be.
Right.
And then the other thing is, if we get to, sales tax, of course, we don't have a platform for that. We don't know right now all the numbers that would have come in for that. But those sort of numbers. The other thing is utility bills. We aren't turning anyone off right now. And there may be a portion of those that will have a hard time collecting. We don't know that yet. We are definitely, I just want to remind everyone, once that is lifted, we will start shutting services off. And I like the article that the Parish House put out. Remember, when you're getting your unemployment and your stimulus tax checks, remember to pay your utility bills, your rent, and pay for food, because that's going to catch up at some point. So, more to come. This will be a long time.
Andy, I have one question. On the CARES Act, is that for organizations or is it?
There's lots of buckets of money out there for different
About the
organizations.
issue I was talking to you about the other day? maybe?
Yes, actually, I could send you
Could you do that?
information that I have received from it about organizations that could qualify in grants and loans.
I appreciate that.
I don't know, I mean, I couldn't tell you, I'm not the expert, but I can tell you where you can start looking to look for information.
Other questions for Amby?
Is
Amby?
Dave Thomas still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, all right.
He's out there. Thanks, Amby.
Okay.
Appreciate everybody.
Thanks, Amby.
Our entire staff at City Hall is doing yeoman's job. Next up is Police Chief Matt Gregory. Chief, how's it going?
So well, Mayor, thank you. Mayor, if I could start out before I get into the MAXIM report, I'd just like to thank you and council members for the action that you took tonight concerning the line of duty death presumption and COVID-19. We hope and pray that this never occurs, that it's never needed. But I believe, and talking, I know I speak on behalf of all the officers, and speaking with Fire Chief Kimball and the fire staff as well, we believe that this action just gives our officers, our firefighters, and especially their families, that extra bit of assurance. Our officers and firefighters out there on the front lines with this, that they'd be protected. So again, thank you for that. The police department continues to seek PPE and cleaning supplies. The Upshur OEM is now the central point of contact for PPE for all of Upshur County. And this is not just the first responders, but all agencies, including medical staff. That being said, we have received 2 different shipments over the last month or so of PPE. Most noteworthy are N95 masks from the OEM. We are rationing those out to each of our officers. We do anticipate a 3rd shipment that's supposed to come either late this week or early next. The central point of collection and disbursement. There is a process now where we file requisition reports with the OEM. I filed the first such report today for the next disbursement. They are working closely with the state, especially the National Guard, who has adopted a method to clean and disinfect N95 masks, which prolongs the life of the N95 mask up to 20 times. And so we have a method in place now that as they're used, instead of discarding them outright, we cycle those out to the OEM who sends them to the National Guard, and we trade them off on a one-for-one basis. So and that's part of why they adopted the formal requisitioning process, just so they could track that. So we're working very closely with them concerning that. And again, not just masks, but we also requisition for other supplies to include face shields and gloves. We're also working very closely with a variety of our businesses here in the community to procure cleaning supplies. This has been a challenge over the last few weeks to find. However, we have been able to obtain through these partnerships enough cleaning supplies to last for a little while at least. As we're cleaning not only our facilities but our equipment, our cruisers on a regular basis. All ships are instructed to regularly clean each of these items. My supervisory staff are having regular meetings each week to discuss not only the directives that are coming down from all levels of government, from federal, state, as well as local initiatives. We're discussing these and forming these into directives for each of our officers, so that we're all on the same page as we carry these each of these directives out. But we're also establishing further guidelines to protect our officers as they handle calls and are on the front line of this. The guidelines that have formed the basis of our operational procedures are not only the CDC, but also the Police Executive Research Forum, which has published a step-by-step procedural for police operations and not only calls, but just everyday encounters. Again, the overall goal is protection of our officers and to minimize exposure. Just a brief summary of some of these that are taken directly from the Police Executive Research Forum, and these are directives that we have issued out to our officers to minimize that exposure and to protect ourselves. Is that if we can handle minor calls over the telephone, and officers are instructed to do so. When officers do respond to calls, they are to make every effort to maintain a 6-foot distance with the caller and anybody else on the call. Officers are to make every effort not to go in houses, but to have callers meet them outside. If neither of the two are possible, if we have to come within 6 feet or anticipate coming within 6 feet, or if we have to go inside a house, officers are instructed to don PPE, which consists of a mask, gloves, and eye protection. And again, that's the need to constantly recycle that out with OEMs. If a person is arrested, officers are instructed to process that person at the jail instead of bringing them into our facility and process the at the jail. And the person transported to the jail, officers are instructed to place a mask on the individual during the transport. So, that being said, the police department is continuing to operate at 100% capacity. We are maintaining 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week coverage, albeit with just extra precautions that we're taking pursuant to the CDC and the FERC guidelines. We are working very closely with businesses and entities throughout the community for extra security requests and extra patrols. Some of these have taken the form of extra duty assignments, and some are special details that we plan for and have assigned various officers to different sites, one of which just occurred a couple weeks ago at the Mountain Food Bank food distribution out at the event center. We work closely with them to make sure that went off without a hitch. So, Mayor, that's all I have unless there's questions.
Questions for Chief Gregory? You had the one ultra interesting incident with the guy going about 100 miles an hour out toward Tennerton from town, is that right?
Yeah, that occurred just last Thursday. Our midnight shift officer, Coleman Kramer, was actually just getting ready to get off duty, and he noticed a vehicle driving at an extreme rate of speed down in the southern part of the town, around Camden Avenue and Route 20 area, blowing through stop signs and passing cars. And so as he attempted to stop him, the vehicle fled from him, continuing 20 south until it ultimately crashed just past the Sago Road. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured. None of our officers were injured. No equipment was damaged. The vehicle that crashed was a total loss. Amazingly enough, even though it appeared that he was entrapped, and just as the fire department began to cut him out of the vehicle, he managed to squeeze out of one of the windows. The vehicle was actually on the top, and at which point he was arrested and taken to the hospital for evaluation, but he was subsequently released later that morning and taken to jail and was being held on felony charge of fleeing with reckless indifference.
It's just a reminder, Matt, that you guys interact day in and day out with people that you never really know what you're dealing with until you're dealing with them. So tell all the guys to be safe. Any questions for Chief Gregory?
Matt, was he on something?
Dave Thomas.
Yes.
Dave Thomas has a question.
I was just asking Matt, was this person on something?
Yeah, we believe that he was, and that's part of the investigation as well.
Thank heavens nobody got hurt.
Tell everybody to be safe.
Yes.
We're thinking about you every time we hear the sirens.
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Mr. O'Neill, what do you got for us, Tom?
Got a few things later on in the meeting, but just a couple things to make mention of. Jerry touched on this briefly, but it's worth just kind of reiterating the alternate mainline extension agreement for the water service to the J.F. Allen property on the south side of Corridor H, west of town, was signed this afternoon and concluded, so that is ready to proceed. The permits are in progress and are expected to be granted by the end of next week. We hope. Now we are working on the sewer side of that. I finished my draft this afternoon, and it's off for review for some other people. We should have it hopefully the first Monday or Tuesday of next week. Hopefully it'll be finished.
Super. Questions for Tom? We're going to have him back up here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks, Tom. Correspondence and information, folks. You've got all kinds of things in your packet as usual. There's the notice of proposed adoption of amendment to the municipal zoning ordinance. There's the notice to lay the levy, which will occur next Tuesday, April 21 at 9 a.m. So be mindful of that. We need at least 4 members of council to participate at that session. There's the World Healthcare Worker Week proclamation. There's the Phase 4 grant application for fiscal year 2021 that was sent out to the West Virginia Commission of the Arts. That's on the Colonial Theater Rehabilitation Project. That went out, I think it was last Friday. There's a letter to Walmart requesting them to entertain the prospects of establishing curbside grocery pickup. We'd had several different residents that had inquired about that, so we sent a letter to Vonda Cable, who's the Walmart manager. And then there's the notice to the store owners that's been posted in most of the grocery and convenience stores about social distancing consistent with what we adopted at our April 2 meeting. The consent agenda consists of 4 matters, the first of which would be the approval of the emergency and regular meeting minutes for April 2, the approval of the building and wiring permits, the approval of payment of the general fund bills, and there is still the approval of the appointment to the Municipal Building Commission. I have not nominated anyone yet, If council doesn't come up with somebody here soon, we'll have to find someone who is a non-Democrat. The Municipal Building Commission consists of 5 members. It previously involved 3 people who were Democrats, 2 who were Republicans. And Tom reminds us that the vacancy doesn't necessarily have to be a Republican. It could be any person who is libertarian or something other than a Democrat, but you can't have more than 3 of the same party affiliated with the Municipal Building Commission. So let's think a little more on that one. Takes us down to, we better approve our consent agenda. Could I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Albaugh has made the motion. Mr. Rylands has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving our consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 I think I heard ayes from everybody. Motion carries. Takes us down to strategic issues for discussion and/or vote. We're going to call Mr. O'Neill back up for a couple of things. First off, approval of ordinance number 444, zoning change of property owner AT&T Enterprises LLC, property on Brushy Fork Road. This would change the zone of the property from military district to C2 highway commercial. You're reminded that this is the 3rd and final reading. Mr. O'Neill, it's all yours.
I think you covered it, but I'll read the ordinance by caption, and then it'll be before the body. Ordinance number 444 of the City of Buckhannon, an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 244, and ordinance number 384 of the City of Buckhannon by rezoning that property with a commonly known address of 937 Brushy Fork Road, identified as Corporation District Map 33, Parcel 1.1, currently titled the name of A&T Enterprises LLC, from Military District to Highway Commercial District. This is the 3rd of 3 readings.
This is the Aaron Harris property near the Armory, and we've been talking about this for some time, and we're trying to facilitate getting Aaron to where he wants to be. I would entertain a motion that we approve this ordinance on 3rd and final reading.
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Rylands. Was that you, Mr. Sanders, or was that Skinner?
It was, I believe me, Sanders.
Okay, we have a motion by Rylands, a second by Sanders. Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 I think I heard everybody say aye. Motion carries. G2, approval of ordinance number 445, zoning change of property owner, Upshur County Development Authority, property on Brushy Fork Road from Military District to Industrial District. Again, 3rd and final reading. Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 445 of the City of Buckhannon, an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 244 and ordinance number 384 of the City of Buckhannon by rezoning that property identified as Corporation District Map 33, Parcel 1, titled in the name of Upshur County Development Authority, from Military District to Industrial District. This is the 3rd of 3 readings.
You heard Mr. O'Neill. I would entertain a motion that we approve ordinance 445 on 3rd and final reading.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Albaugh. Was that you, Mr. Skinner?
It was.
Okay, I have a motion by Albaugh, a second by Skinner. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing of the need for none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. G3, we received a request from the Buckhannon Rotary Club, and they would like to recognize the healthcare workers of our community with the installation. And Amby, I think they're going to put 2 or 3 of these up, and one of the places they want to put it up is out front at City Hall. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the design isn't necessarily the final one. I think this was one initial rendering that they've thrown to us. We've been celebrating Healthcare Worker Week last week anyway. Perhaps we should be celebrating the whole month given the circumstances of our world. But we wanted the council to weigh in on this request. It's something that I would recommend we do. I would entertain a motion that we authorize the installation of the Rotary sign recognizing healthcare workers out in front of City Hall.
Second.
I think, was that motion by Pam Bucklew?
Well, so moved by Randall Nance.
Okay.
Yes, but I will.
Now I have a motion by,
Libertarian.
I have a motion by Sanders and a second by Rylands. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Item G4. Due to the date change of the 2020 primary election, City of Buckhannon holiday schedule would change from May 12th being a holiday. In other words, we're going to make everybody work on May 12th. But when it's even warmer in June, see, this is a good thing for our employees. They'll have a better day. Watch, it'll rain like cats and dogs, right, on June 9th. So everybody understands what we're doing. We're not having an election on May 12th, so we don't need to declare a holiday then. But we are having an election on June 9th, so we need to declare that as a holiday instead. I would entertain a motion that we effect this.
So
So moved.
I think I heard Mrs. Albaugh first and Mr. Thomas second the motion. So the motion is by Albaugh, the second is by Thomas, but we had several enthusiastic thirds. Is there any discussion on the motion? I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, like sign, motion carries. G5, and I have a brief statement to read. This is mostly informational, but bear with me. Perhaps like an epic motion picture, years in the making, I'm very pleased to report this evening that our City Water Board has reached a formal agreement with J.F. Allen Company to install water on the south side of U.S. Route 33. Additionally, our Sanitary Board, just this afternoon, approved entering into the sanitary sewer version of an agreement that is now in circulation, and I fully expect that second agreement will be executed in the coming days as well. This concludes years of Buckhannon's attempts to realize installation of utilities along Corridor H just to the west of our corporate limits. These utilities will open up opportunities for new developments along the south side of the highway. We believe these utility projects involving cooperative engineering, design, permitting, inspection, and construction activities, realizing project completion within 3 months. Additionally, our sewer crews will commence construction of sanitary sewer on the north side within the next 2 weeks, weather permitting, immediately adding about a dozen commercially developable tracts of land to our community's development mix. We believe this project, designed and constructed by our city staff, will take 3 to 4 months to complete. We believe that the north and south side projects should essentially conclude the rancor with developers, public service districts, and the county commission that arose in September of 2019. The outcome is precisely the one that our city had sought during the past 7 months. That is, the opportunity to develop water and sewer utilities in our designated utility areas. It's a good day for our Buckhannon-Upshur community, and we look forward to bringing those utility extensions online in the coming months. So that's information. Water Board and Sanitary Board have already acted on it, but now Council knows about it. And it takes us down to our last strategic matter of the night, which is the financing of the property that we are in the process of acquiring along Madison Street. And I'm going to call upon Amby Jenkins. Amby has a couple of 3 models for us to consider. So without further ado, Mrs. Jenkins, it's all yours.
Okay, so financing of the Madison Street property, of course, the Citizen Bank wants in exchange for the $100,000 they're going to be donating to the Stalker Youth Center. In exchange, we will issue them a check for $200,000. So they'll issue us a check for $100,000. We'll issue them a check for $200,000 for the property on Madison Street. So I'm tasked with the job of looking for the funds to pay for that. So I need to write a check for $200,000 to Citizens Bank. So here's some ideas. We could borrow the funds. To do this, we'd have to call the building commission together. We'd probably get a rate of about 3%. Part of the funds could be taken out of your council contingency to pay towards this. And I think I told you this the last time. You have $100,000 in there. Of course, you have to keep in mind that if you make any contributions to the Strawberry Festival, you'd want to take that off. So that's one. You have rainy day funds. You have $514,000 in the rainy day funds. You could take part of it out of the rainy day fund and part of it out of your contingency. Now here's the one I like. So yesterday I was in conversations with the Department of Tax and Revenue. And for the quarter that we're coming up with, we're going to get our sales tax money next week. And that's for sales tax from January to March. And they told me we're going to get $231,243 out of that sales tax money for that first quarter of 2020. And we have not budgeted anything for that. We weren't sure what we were getting. I thought we'd get about $130,000, but we're getting $231,000. So we can do that a couple of ways. That it can all come out of sales tax. You can take part out of your contingency and part out of the sales tax, and we can leave that set and use that for future reference. But it was exciting news. It was more than I anticipated, and I thought of the future of Buckhannon for sure there, and that this was a good decision that the council made for the future of Buckhannon. And so there's your choices.
Thanks, Ian.
Discussion.
I support your last initiative there, that we just take the unbudgeted receipts from the sales tax first quarter and close this deal out
Close the
with
deal.
some
I
extra
agree.
money in hand. It's a less movements around, and I think you agree that's probably the easiest one.
You are the money lady.
Other thoughts?
I couldn't quite hear all of what CJ had said there.
CJ wants to take $200,000 from the $231,000 and change and just be done with it, receiving the $100,000 for the Stockard project and immediately assigning that to the capital campaign.
And I agree.
Mrs. Allball
I agree
likes,
with that.
Mrs. Allball likes that model. I would tell you.
agree as well.
I would tell you that one thing that has been discussed, interest rates are at historic lows. I am not an advocate of borrowing. Everybody knows that. We have been very, we paid for things as we go during the past 4 years. So I'd rather not borrow. It is tempting, given where interest rates are right now. It's not quite free money, but it's not far from it. But the problem is that if we finance that over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, some of the kids that we're trying to have benefit from part of this project will be paying for this into their adulthood. I just, Dave Thomas, do you want to speak to what your thoughts are on the matter?
Well, I think it's always attractive when you have such low interest rates, but I agree with what you're all saying. The one thing I would like the council to think of for the future is that the rainy day fund has been stuck at that amount of money for a long time. And I think with this outstanding information that Amby received yesterday in regard to the sales tax, I think at some point in time, the Revenue Expense Committee, which we meet occasionally, we need to have a goal for what we want the rainy day fund to be at some point in time. I don't think it's grown any in the last, 5 or 6, 7 years. The other thing, David, is that, we don't get any money on our CDs anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think we go ahead and, Amby made the recommendation, and I don't have a problem with that. And CJ agrees with it, and so does Robbie. I think everybody does. So let's do it.
Anybody else have any questions or comments of Mrs. Jenkins especially? She's the one that toils with these things and then gives them
She's the financial guru, so let's listen to her.
Yes, she
the
is.
grand poobah of dollars.
Okay, you'll need to, in your motion, of course, I'll need to do a budget revision. So perhaps you want me to put that budget revision along with your lay the levy on
That's-
Tuesday?
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So
You know,
could I have a motion
So,
the motion will include two things. The first one would be to pay $200,000 out of the $231,000 and change that we are just now receiving to pay cash to Citizens Bank, no financing, no borrowing of any funds. I assume the other $32,000 would go into council's contingency funds?
Nope, it
I'll
stays in
take it.
sales tax. You leave that in sales tax because it operates similar to municipal stabilization. You will decide at a case-by-case basis how to do that. Now,
Okay.
in the budget coming up, the 2021, you budgeted $900,000 out of that will go to several capital expenses. So that'll be pulled out periodically for those expenses.
So we'll take 200, pay citizens, get the 100 back from Citizens for Stockard, put the 31 and change, keep it in the sales tax fund, and we would have a budget revision as a second business item during next Tuesday's 9 a.m. meeting to approve the budget revision. And
I
after,
move we do that, David.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas. Can I have a second to his
Second.
motion? I have a second by Mrs. Albaugh. The motion is by Thomas. The second is by Albaugh. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Minutes to reflect, the motion carries unanimously. Takes us down to council comments and announcements, and Mrs. Albaugh, you still got that egg going for you. You're always first.
Oh, because I'm an A.
That's right.
Oh. Okay. Amby?
Wait a minute.
I know.
Standing ovation.
Evil eye. She's got an eagle, not
There's
evil.
also
Eagle eye.
people in the city that are buying things.
And I miss all you other people out there on the walkie-talkies or cell phones or whatever we're doing here. I'll be glad when we get back together.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, please, please be careful out there, especially our first responders, everybody. Just take care.
Thanks, Mary. Pam Bucklew, you're up next.
Oh, I'm just going to say, tell everybody to be safe and stay home.
I can't.
Thanks, Pam.
I can go to work.
Mr. Rylands.
I'd like to think that people would strive to exercise restraint and tolerance with trying to go along with all these new rules and policies and behaviors and try not to internalize the stress and just try to delay any kind of negative impulse you might have and just get through this together. Thanks.
Thanks, CJ. Mr. Skinner.
I think as we start to get close to the end of the fiscal year here, getting close to a month and a half, 2 months out, and we do have some money remaining in our contingency fund, and we do have now around $31,000 or so remaining out of that, what we just expensed towards the property. I'd like for us, maybe the appropriate place is for the revenue committee that Dave Thomas mentioned, for us to consider, just have an open discussion about what could we do, if anything, to try to help some of our friends and neighbors here, business-wise, in our community. We've got a lot of people that depend on their business income that are struggling mightily right now. And, our office is wide open. We're part of the insurance industry. It's an essential business. And I'm really beginning to hear a lot of folks talk as they prepare their bills and look at what they're going to pay. Obviously, insurance is one of those things that gets paid, and a lot of folks pay right here in our office. So the conversations come up about, this or that or this, as far as making decisions on what to pay, because things are getting tight. So, I'd like for us to be a friend. I'd like for us to be an ally in this, and to see if there's anything we can do to help. Because we, as Dave, you say, we're all in this together. I want us to be as helpful as we can possibly be to people that really make this community great.
Thanks, Robbie. Mr. Thomas.
I would, on the signs that Rotary's going to put up, I agree 100% with what they're doing. I also think that we need to thank many other individuals, like the truck drivers that kept the supply chain going, and the different people in grocery stores and pharmacies and so forth. There's an awful lot of individuals out there that are, as we're all saying, in this together. I also, I listened a little bit to the news on the radio today, and the SBA has already run out of money for the small businesses. And evidently, partisan politics starting to rear its ugly head again between the Democrats and the Republicans. That's unfortunate. We must come together as a country and forget politics when we're helping people out. I thank all of you for what you all do. And Abby, I know you're pretty darn happy with that sales tax. Let's wait and see what else happens in the next 3 quarters.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas.
All be safe.
Randy Sanders.
Well, I want to thank each and every employee and department head, all of the folks that have been working so hard on long hours each day through this whole COVID-19 situation. I want to thank Callie and Jay Holland, who handled this sometimes as well, for setting up the platform with the GoToMeeting. I was always a little hesitant with technology, 10 years ago, but I embraced it, and it has moved us into a new direction. I talked to the mayor earlier. I voluntarily stepped aside to stay back and not attend the meeting, to allow other people to be there that had reasons to need to be there. I think it's wise that as city recorder, since if something, God forbid, were to happen to the mayor, that I would need to be healthy, and it's something to consider. So I'm speaking to you through my computer. Again, thank goodness for technology. Let's all continue to work together. Another good ordinance was passed this evening that I think is in the best interest of our citizenry. And I just thank everyone for their hard work.
Thanks, Randy. Nice thoughts.
Very nice, very nice.
I don't have a whole lot to add to any of those things. I just want to try to reassure our residents that this god-awful, highly inconvenient thing will someday, soon, and soon is a bit of a vague term. We don't know whether it's going to be 2 weeks or next month or 6 weeks from now, but we think that the curve is being flattened. You listen to these press conferences involving whether you're following Jim Justice or Donald Trump or Andrew Cuomo, or it appears as though we are at the apex, and soon we'll be able to have our Festival Fridays in Jawbone Park, and you'll be able to line up in Dairy Queen without having to be 6 feet from the guy in front of you, and you'll be able to visit your grandchildren, for crying out loud. I mean, of all the things that have impacted me, this stuff, those of you that know me well know what the grandkids mean. And when you pull up in a car and you hand an Easter basket to them and drive away without any interaction time, that's a tough thing. And I know many of us in the community are going through those same kinds of familial challenges. But we're edging closer. We're a day closer today than we were yesterday to this thing being behind us. That's all I have. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the order? I would remind you again, council, that 5 days from today, Tuesday, April 21st, and that's at 9 a.m., we will have a meeting, a special meeting, to accomplish two things. Number one, to set the levy, and number two, to entertain the budget revision that Amby visited with us a little bit ago concerning the bank property that we're acquiring on Madison Street. I would entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
A motion by Allbaugh, a second by Rylands. At 8:21, we are out of here. Thank you very
Be
much.
safe.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks.